To stay or not to stay at Orisson, that is. That's the question I'm going to be talking to you guys about today because I think it's one of the first questions that people ask themselves after they decide to do the Camino Frances. And especially since it's mid-January, I think the question is on the minds of a lot of people who are going to be starting their Caminos in April or May because that's when the Napoleon route reopens. So I actually have written down some thoughts on my computer, so if you see me looking away, I want to make sure I get all the relevant information out here for you guys. But for those who don't know, Refuge Orisson is one of the only places you can stay between Saint-Jean and Roncesvalles in Spain. And essentially, staying there turns what would otherwise be a 24-kilometer day, mostly uphill and pretty tough, into an 8-kilometer day the first day and a 16-kilometer day the second day. I did stay there when I did my Camino, so my first night, June 20th. And I'll talk to you more about my experience. But first, I figured a good way to start would be to actually read a question and answer that I saw from the Camino de Santiago forum, because I think it tees up a lot of the thoughts people have when they pose the same question, and the answer touched on a lot of my feelings toward the topic. So the question reads, and this is from 2012, if I haven't said that, so the prices will be a little different. I'm debating on whether or not to stop for the night in Orisson, for people who are not recognizing that word, it's Orisson, or to continue to Roncesvalles on day one. On the one hand, I don't want to push myself too fast. On the other, Orisson does not seem like much of a push for the first day. I don't want to regret booking ahead and paying for a room I don't use, and I don't want to get that far and regret not having a room. I know it seems minor, but 32 euros is 32 euros. Any advice? I'm walking alone and have been thinking a lot about this. And the answer from somebody was, even if your abilities allow you to continue to Roncesvalles on the first day, a stop at Orisson was worth it for me. The vistas from here are spectacular. The communal meal and the traditions that go with it were quite special, and it provided an opportunity to relax and meet some pilgrims, some of whom I kept in touch with all along my Camino. The road to Roncesvalles is quite beautiful over the mountains, so I found it worth it to take my time going through it the next day instead of trying to rush through to make it to the monastery before too late in the day. The morning mist with all of the horses over the Pyrenees is unforgettable. I say stay. I completely agree with the person who responded. I also say stay. And I'm going to give you guys my top 10 reasons to stay, but before that, I will discuss a few of, I guess, the negatives, so to speak. I think the first one a lot of people think about, there are probably two main negatives for most people, the price and the timing. If you're short on days for the Camino, it does add an extra day into your schedule. However, that said, and as I'll discuss later, I do think it might allow you to then pick up some time on the back end because you will have started off in a way that helps prevent injuries and severe fatigue and blisters. And the cost, when I signed up, I think it was about 38 euros, which includes your bed, your shower, dinner, and breakfast, which came out to about almost $50. So that's for an albergue stay. That's pretty much one of the most expensive stays you'll have on the Camino Frances, although I understand that to be more consistent with the fact that albergues in France are a lot more expensive and tend to be always all-inclusive when it comes to meals. I'd say another potential negative is there's an early bedtime, but most people like that. I just thought it was a little bit bizarre that I was in bed before the sun really had even gone to bed. And my room was quite hot, but it was comfortable. It was 6 bunk beds, but it was very, very warm. I did not sleep very well, but I think that was more of a product of the fact that I was nervous, anxious, and it was a little bit warm in the room. And another thing is there are only, if I recall correctly, at least in my part of the building, there are only 2 showers for women and 2 showers for men. This was a little bit fewer than I'd seen in most of the other places I stayed, but again, there aren't that many people staying there, so even if you have to wait, you're going to get your shower. And I'll be talking more about the showers in just a little bit. So, now onto my list of top 10 reasons to stay at Orisson. The first one, I think I was one of the only people that did this because I was pretty much the last to arrive, despite being a pretty quick walker, is you can stay later in Saint-Jean. Maybe that's not feasible if you're staying at an albergue that needs you out by 8, but I chose to stay. I found a really good price at a hotel because I knew I wanted a little bit of extra good snoreless sleep before I started the Camino. So I think the checkout time was like 11. I checked out leisurely. I was able to get my walking poles that morning. I bought a sandwich for half to eat there and half for the road. And I don't think I really even started off until probably close to noon. The benefit of doing that is that you then get to see if it's going to be a clear and beautiful day. In that part of the country, or of Europe, tends to be very misty in the morning. So when I started off, all of that had cleared, and it was an absolutely gorgeous day. And the views that I saw going up, looking back over Saint-Jean, were just, in the countryside, were stunning. Now, the flip side was that it was one of the hottest days that I had on all of my Camino, and I was sweating like absolute crazy because the climb up to Orisson is very, very steep in a lot of places. The second half is harder than the first half. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, you can sleep in, you can get some great views on your way up. And it's not a rush because if you've already reserved, which I presume you have, there's literally no reason to get there super early except for the fact that moving on to number 9, there's a stunning terrace at Orisson. So the earlier you get there, the longer you can enjoy beers or Coke or whatever you prefer to drink out there and do some journaling. Or the coolest thing is just talking to the other people, most of whom have just started their Camino with you. So number 8 is the fact that even though, what you're losing, what that day lacks in kilometers, you're making up for in the fact that you're saving your energy, because it's a difficult day. So much of it is uphill. There is also some downhill, but pretty much at the very end of the day into Roncesvalles if you continue on. And the people that I spoke to that went the whole way, their focus, they told me, tended to be on just getting to Roncesvalles and making sure they had a bed. And I think that's a big mistake because there are so many beautiful things to see. Animals everywhere, different landscapes, little pit stops to make. And so if you can afford that extra day, I just think that your body will thank you, as well as your camera and your social media community. Number 7, let's talk the Orisson shower coin. People have some mixed feelings about this. Basically, you get a special coin when you get there and check in that you have to put into the shower. Once you put it in, your 5 minutes start. So, and you have to keep pressing the knob for the water. It takes a little bit of time to figure out, but it's not too tough. It's not 5 minutes of water. It's 5 minutes from when you put the coin in. So I think that's a plus because I think it's a good way to get into the habit early on of taking shorter showers when you're staying in a communal space, because there often only are a few showers. So I guess I view that as it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek positive, but hey, you got to make the best out of the situation. Number 6, you get an amazing dinner with plenty of food and lots of free-flowing red wine. Katie, one of the people that I met that night, who I continued to see my whole Camino, said the lentil soup that we ate there was probably one of the best things she had on the whole Camino. So it's a special dinner experience. Everyone goes around that wants to and introduces themselves, talks about what number Camino this is for them, why they're there, who they're with. And I think especially for those walking alone, as I was, it was a great opportunity to see who else was walking alone, or just kind of get to know some faces early on. Because in Roncesvalles, if you stay in the monastery, I mean, it's a big space. It's pretty impersonal. There's not a lot of communal space to meet other people. So it's nice to already arrive there knowing a few other people. Five deals with the breakfast, but more specifically, you get coffee in bowls. And by bowls, yes, I mean bowls. I understand that to be fairly typical on the when you do the Camino in France, but in Spain you rarely will see it like that. So yes, you can start off your day very well caffeinated. And speaking of food, you can also pay a little extra and get something for the road because there's a van stop on the way if it's nice out, but it's not always guaranteed to be there. So I ordered, I think, a tortilla de patatas or something like that for the road. So there are culinary options, if you will, and coffee in a bowl. This is another landscape aspect. Depending on how quickly, if you did it all in one day, if you left very early from Saint Jean, maybe you'd get a chance to see this. But when we left Orisson, it was maybe a little before 8 a.m. and it was still really misty as we were walking up. And then when we got almost to the Pic d'Orisson, one of the highest points where there's this beautiful Virgin Mary statue and you look out all over all the different peaks, the mist had pretty much cleared. It looked like we were floating on a sea of mist. If anyone follows my Instagram, it's Wanderlusting Lawyer. I have some incredible pictures from that day. And it was just stunning to see the blue skies up above and the green hills and then the mist and clouds down below. So, and when I showed my pictures to other people who walked, they said that almost none of them had gotten that type of view. So, of course, it's dependent on the day, but I just think you have a better chance of getting those views if you break it into 2 days. Number 3, I think it's nice too that it puts you, if you start off from Orisson around 8, it puts you in the Roncesvalles, depending on how quickly you walk, between 1 and 2. I think the albergue opens at 2, but there can be a pretty long line to check in. So at least it allows you to get there, kind of relax. There's a big outdoor courtyard. And it was sunny when we were there, at least until the afternoon. So it gives you some time to decompress, to get your bunk, to take an earlier shower, and to explore the town. There are a couple restaurants and bars, and I did not do anything other than the Pilgrim's Mass that night, but I've heard there's really cool things like a museum in the monastery or the building next to it. So there are things to do there for sure. Number 2, this is the one most people talk about. This is my number 2 because it's a little different for me. I'll explain. Most people say the best thing about Orisson is meeting your Camino family, the people that you're going to spend your whole Camino with. That wasn't really the case for me. There certainly were people that I saw a lot as I was going through the Camino. But that can be important for a lot of people, that you'll meet the people you may walk with the whole way. I think people have fallen in love there is what I've heard. But actually, my number 1 is related, but I will never forget when I was in Samos in Galicia. It was like maybe day 30 of 35, where I saw a French woman that I had not seen since Orisson. And when you get to Galicia, as many of you who have done the Camino know, it can start to feel impersonal and not like the same Camino you know, because so many new people have joined just to do the last 100 kilometers. So when I was in Samos, I reconnected with probably 5 different people that I had started in Orisson with, but one woman in particular that I had not seen since that first night. And then we ended up walking on and off together for the next few days and seeing each other in Santiago, right next to each other in line to get our certificates. So for me, that had huge value. When you're at the end and you're feeling a little bit disconnected from how you maybe have felt throughout most of your Camino, when you see those people that you started your Camino with, I think it causes a really cool interaction and experience in that sense. So if you can't tell, I highly recommend staying at Orisson if you can afford the time and the price. And logistically speaking, I remember I emailed them, sorry if I've already said this, but I emailed them on April 11th, and I think I had the response on April 17th. I know a lot of people get nervous because it takes them a while to respond. I would definitely recommend emailing them with the address that you use for your PayPal account, assuming that hasn't changed, because I don't remember that they ever actually wrote me back. I just ended up getting a PayPal invoice, and I paid that, and I assumed my reservation was good, and it was. So yeah, please feel free to let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you all get a chance to stay at Orisson because it's amazing.